Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. I appreciate that there are some people still interested in fish. As you said, it's not a very sexy topic, and it's hard to get people interested, but maybe I will manage to spread some fish love during this coming minutes. So, if I can change the slide. Just to give you a brief introduction to Oceana, we are an international NGO. We are science-based. We carry our own exploration at sea, our own expeditions, and our work is targeted at changing policy, so making sure that fisheries can be more sustainable, more transparent, and eliminate pirate illegal fishing. So today I will try to tell you about the challenges and possible technology solutions to some problems and challenges that we face in the oceans. First of the challenges is the research itself. And then we have like 3 key problems when we think about sustainable fisheries. This is overfishing, illegal fishing, and seafood traceability. When you think about ocean research, the main challenge we have is that oceans are deep, great, and oceans are huge, as Donald Trump would say. So this is the principal challenge: how to see what's happening on the seabed, how to monitor the surface of the oceans. We use underwater robots like this ROV, remotely operated vehicle. This is a solution for checking deep sea, for example, at depths bigger than let's say 50 meters, 100 meters, because the divers can only go as deep as 20, 30, maybe 40 meters deep. So these ROVs are designed to sustain pressure at very high depth, for example, like 1,000 meters, 2, 3, 5, even up to 7 kilometers in case of industrial robots. This is the operation of launching an underwater robot. This is, as you can see here, this cable connecting the robot is fiber optic, so you can have data transmission of the images and footage that you can get from the seabed. It's quite challenging because of underwater currents. Basically, when you launch the ROV, it's crucial to get it in the right position and not to lose it. Because if you lose it at 5,000 or 2,000 or 1,000 meters deep, it's very hard to retrieve. The kind of images we got from the seabed were sometimes quite depressing, because you can see basically marine litter everywhere. There are signs of human activity, human impacts, even at 500 meters, 800 meters depth. So starting with tires, litter, a lot of plastic bags, barrels, also ghost nets. Ghost nets are abandoned fish nets that can keep on fishing while they float, or just got to the seabed and stay there, sometimes forever. And this is a trap for marine organisms as well. So when you think about other ways to explore the oceans, there are also gliders. These are like small submarine autonomous robots who move by means of buoyancy. So they go up and down. While they reach the surface, they can exchange the data via satellites. And the good thing about the gliders is that they're completely autonomous, and once you launch a glider, it can stay in the water for weeks or even months and has a range of hundreds of kilometers. Gliders normally used to take measurements such as temperature, sea currents, chlorophyll, fluorescence, acoustics, bottom depth, so they're used for all kinds of measurements. There are also drones that you can use. There's like plenty of different applications of drones. You can follow whales, marine mammals, and migratory species to check their migratory paths. You can use them for example, for checking of any navigation hazards or pollution spills. You can use them also for monitoring of illegal activities or monitoring of marine protected areas. So there's a whole array of applications still to explore. So these were like the basic technology devices we can use to explore the oceans. And when we think about problems and challenges in ocean conservation, one of them is overfishing. And this is a problem that in Europe maybe it's not very known, because we think that we are the leaders of sustainability and environmental protection. In case of fishing, it's not entirely true. And you may not realize, but the rate of overfishing in the Mediterranean Sea is very high. It's 93% of overfish stocks. Whereas in the Atlantic, the tendency was good, we're going down, and now we are more like half-half. Half of the stocks are fished in a sustainable way, and half of the fish are still overexploited. So there's a lot of improvement to be done. When we think about European fisheries, it's not about science and it's not about technology. I wish there was some technology solution, a silver bullet to resolve this problem. However, it's a political decision. The fishing quotas, fishing limits are set every December in Brussels, where 28 ministers of fisheries, food and agriculture come, and basically they negotiate the fishing quotas. The quotas, the fishing limits, were supposed to be based on science. So scientists give advice on how much fish you can fish in order for the stocks to be sustainable, so that they can reproduce. However, in practice, it's more about politics and horse trading. I would say rather fish trading. So the ministers come, and after long negotiations, they come with this and that amount of fish. The problem we are having is that they allow for overfishing. So the country number one, which has allowed for overfishing during the last 17 years, was Spain. They overfished by 38%, which makes almost 1 million tons of fish. As you can see, Germany is on the 5th place. So the rate of overfishing in case of German stocks was 22%, which makes almost 500,000 of tons of fish that should not be fished in order to be sustainable. So this kind of question maybe you could ask to your minister, Mr. Christian Schmidt, who is the Federal Minister for Food and Agriculture, and he goes to Brussels to negotiate fishing limits. So it is very important to hold your politicians accountable. You have to keep pressure on them, and you have to show that you care, because nobody cares about fish. If you tweet at the ministry, maybe they will change their mind and they'll see that there's somebody more than just fishing companies and fishing lobby, and people care about this. Another problem we have is pirate fishing, and this is, I will use my fancy tentacle to point and to underline that this is not how pirates look anymore. When you think about pirate fishing these days, it looks like this. It's IUU fishing, illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing. So fishing where you have no permission to fish, in places where you cannot fish, fishing for species that you cannot fish, fishing using gears that is illegal, or basically fishing more than you're supposed to. This is a big problem for the environment because you impact the marine life. It's a problem, it's a social problem because it can cause social impacts. There were also cases of slavery and human rights abuses in such situation of illegal fishing. And it's a problem for economy because it creates big loss. In order to better monitor fishing, we may think of using satellite data. And this data is used, for example, by one of the tools which is called Global Fishing Watch. And it's an interactive tool that basically visualizes the satellite data in order to give free access to everybody to information about where fishing activities is taking place. If you go to the website, you can check this tool, and it gives you the map of fishing grounds. You can check different layers. For example, you can apply the filter for marine protected areas, for exclusive economic zones of each countries, high seas, And basically, it will show you, according to different layers and filters, the type of activity you're looking for. All these yellow dots, the light dots, are potential fishing activity. So you can see how the fleet is concentrating in certain areas where there are very abundant fish stocks. You can also change the timeline. So you can monitor the fishing that took place last week, last month, or even 4 years ago, because this database covers 4.5 years and over 36,000 fishing vessels. And this is based on satellite technology called IIS, Automatic Identification System. This is a tracking system which is based to avoid marine collisions. So most of the fishing vessels and all big vessels are equipped with this device. They send the signal from to the land, to the controlling authorities, but also to surrounding ships to basically transmit information about them. And the data that they transmit is the name of the vessel, the signal name, the speed, the direction, and the type of vessel. So based on all this information, you can figure out what kind of vessel it is and where is it moving. And the system basically gathers all this data, processes it, and based on algorithms and machine learning, it shows you which vessels are likely to be fishing. Because, for example, when a fishing activity occurs, the speed slows down, and the vessel is moving in a certain way, depending on the fishing gear that it's using. So, whereas it used to be like straight course, it may go all of a sudden zigzag at the lower speed, so we can tell that this is actually, there's some kind of activity that reminds fishing. As a case study, I will show you how we can apply this tool. This is a situation before declaring a no-take zone in Central Pacific Ocean and the Phoenix Islands protected areas. So before January 2015, there was a lot of fishing activity going on. You can see all the light dots. After declaring the marine protected area, which is the red square, you set the timeline from January 1st, and you see that there's hardly any activity going on. So that shows that actually the marine protected area is working, and the fishing vessels are avoiding this protected area. This tool may also serve to check how respected this no intake zone is. For example, this is a case of one of the fishing vessels that entered the zone at a regular speed. You can see the straight line, and then it started doing some kind of strange course, which was potentially fishing, and then it went out. So this kind of data, when the controlling authority, they see something's happening there, they can send a controlling vessels, a coast guard, and check what was the kind of activity, was it legal, was it illegal. So this is a good indication. And actually this vessel was illegally fishing in a zone that was not supposed to. You can also check for different other filters in this tool, like choose the kind of fleets that you want to monitor. In this example, we can see Spain in the yellow color, Japan in red, and South Korea in violet. So you can see that there are certain zones where the fishing vessels goes because basically there is a big biodiversity there and abundant fish stocks. Another problem and another challenge that we have when it comes to fisheries is the seafood trade, which is one of the most globalized businesses. The markets are very complex. Here, as you can see, the trade flows are quite complicated because some of the fish is fished in one state and it can be sent to China to process, then sent back to Europe to sell. So it's an extremely globalized market. Hence, the traceability of seafood is a big challenge. When it comes to Europe, we are one of the leading seafood markets. As you know, we have 500 million consumers, citizens and consumers, and the annual consumption is about 24 kilos of fish per year. Also, of course, it varies in the southern countries, in Mediterranean countries, Nordic countries, the consumption is a bit higher. However, we are very dependent on imports. So we import 60% of fish that we consume. This is because our stocks are overfished, and this is because also we consume a lot. Another question when we think about seafood trade is the long supply chain. So from the moment that the fish is caught at a fishing vessel to the moment that it's available at your local fishmonger or in a restaurant, when it goes to the final consumer, it takes a lot of different stages of processing, transport, or selling. So at each of these stages, the middleman, something might go wrong in terms of traceability. It is also known that when it comes to meat, it's easier to identify. We got 4, maybe 5 basic types of meats, and more or less people can tell the difference between chicken, pork, and beef. But in case of fish, it's a whole array of different types of fish, seafood, white fish. Can you really tell the difference between a cod, saithe, Alaskan pollock, hake, and pangasius? It's hard to tell. And we documented this problem in Brussels when we made DNA testing in, you can basically get something else that you wanted. We tested 150 restaurants in Brussels and over 280 fish dishes. And the result was that 1/3 of this fish was mislabeled. So you were not given what you ordered. They pretended to be selling bluefin tuna. In practice, that was something else, yellowfin tuna, less expensive species, or in case of cod, it were like up to 10 different species that were pretending to be cod. So that's a potential problem in restaurants to find out. And the reason is because the fish, as I said, looks quite the same. It's hard to really tell what's the difference between bluefin tuna, which is very expensive, exquisite, and not really in the best condition fish, and yellowfin tuna, which is more popular, it's cheaper, it's easier to get. So in over 80% of the cases that the sellers were claiming to sell this kind of fish, it was different type of tuna, especially in sushi restaurants. So it's really hard to get, especially when you think that it's so rare. So whenever the fish is cheap, looks very cheap, it's something fishy about it, and you should be concerned. So all this type of fish might look like a very complicated world for people who have no idea about fisheries. I can tell you as an anecdote that while we were testing the fish, it took us 3 months of eating fish every day. We would go to restaurants to get very small samples undercover and then give it to the University of Leuven to test for genetics. And we had one sample that was very problematic because they couldn't match it with any fish that they had in their database. And they had about 11,000 different DNA for fish. So they told us that probably it's not a fish. So we still don't know what we ate. Maybe it was a rat or something else, but it was not fish. So a solution to improve traceability of seafood, you may think about different technologies. You may think about different use of big data. You may think about blockchain, which is becoming more and more popular as a solution to traceability problems in supply chains. You can think about transparency apps that help the customers and consumers to tell one fish of another and also spread awareness about the sustainability status of a given fish, and different sets of database websites that try to help in this challenge. However, if we think about technology, as I said, there's no silver bullets, and it all depends on human factors. So whenever you order fish, my recommendation would be to get to know its status. If there's any particular fish that you like, try to check out, is it sustainable? How is it fished? Ask questions. Ask questions in the restaurants, ask questions at the fishmonger, because if you're concerned, the seafood providers will be also concerned. So ask them, is it imported? Is it domestic? How is it caught? Is it sustainable? Are you sure this is this kind of fish? How do you know? Just ask questions, be inquisitive. And also, as I said, fishing quotas are a political problem. So contact your representatives, members of European Parliament, contact the ministry and tell them basically to stop overfishing. Dankeschön, thank you very much. Please follow us and help us to stop overfishing and spread the world. Thank you.
And there's some time for some questions and hopefully some answers. If you have some questions, just raise your hand, I will come to you. Ah, sorry.
Hello. I have a question. I stopped eating fish because of this reason, like a while back. But I always thought about like fish that was on stock, or they just like have their own fishing pools where they breed the fish. What about these kind of fish? I don't know.
Aquaculture?
Huh?
You mean?
Yeah.
Aquaculture? Yes.
What's your opinion on it or something?
Can you
What's your opinion on these kind of fish?
Yes, so I was talking about wild fish only, because we mainly work on wild fish and then fisheries. We want fisheries to be sustainable, because fisheries can be sustainable. If you take out the amount that it's small enough to make the stock population recover, it can be sustainable, and it's less impactful than the agriculture, for example. When you think about aquaculture, so fish farming, it's more, it's also challenging, because you have to think about the way you impact the environment. What do you do with the wastes? What do you do with antibiotics? How do you keep your fish healthy? So it can be tricky.
Thank you. Also, another consumer perspective question. Like, there's a bunch of seals and audits, and then there's MSC, sustainability, etc. I never know which of those I can trust. Like, I stopped eating fish because I felt so bad about overfishing, and I was so wrong, like worried about making the wrong choice, that I've just decided not to eat any. Which is probably the wrong approach too, because you want to give your money to support those who are doing it right, to keep them in business and continue doing the right thing and changing the minds of everyone else. So is there a certification that you say, well, they're actually doing a really good job in tracking the fish that these products or these suppliers or sellers are using?
There are many types of labeling and certification. However, the problem is there's no one consistent and globalized standard. So the question is, what do you really consider as sustainable? Some certificates, they consider only sustainability environmentally. There are also questions of social sustainability. Is it sourced in a way that respects, for example, human rights? So there is no one good label, I would say. You have to... On the other hand, a label is better than no label at all. So we have to make your own choice. It's not easy.
Thank you. I wanted to ask, besides those protected areas, what else is being done, or what else could be done to avoid these pirates?
To avoid pirate fishing, there are many ways. One of the ways is cut them off the market. That would be market incentive, basically. Make sure that these companies, they don't get insurance coverage, that they're not allowed to fish, and, for example, they are not allowed to take credit from the banks, for example. That will be addressing the illegal fishing from a completely different side. Of course, there's control and monitoring, surveillance by Coast Guard, but it's not always possible at high seas. So the challenge is to identify. And those companies are often kind of very untransparent. You cannot really see who is benefiting from selling this fish, because there are many middle companies in the between. So you have to find out and cut them off from the market, so that they cannot sell the fish that they catch in an illegal way.
And one last question.
Hello, one question is there a point of no return? So when is the date when we have overfished, when there's when it's over with fish?
When is the moment that we overfish? How do we know this?
Yeah, you
That's
think
the question?
the moment will come when we
Yeah, from some stocks the moment has come. For example, there is a case in cod in Newfoundland, in the Canadian coast. There was complete cod fisheries collapse in the early 90s. And only now, after 25 years, it's slowly recovering. So normally, the rough awakening is when you see that there's no more fish. But now, today, with the statistical methods we have, we can assess the state of the biomass. So you just check how much fish, how much small fish there is, what's the reproduction rate, what's the mortality, and you can assess this by sampling. And there are institutes that deal with this question, and they provide the scientific advice to the ministers. And it should be respected, but it's not always the case, and that's the problem. But there are scientific methods in biology that deals with it.
Thank you for coming by, Agnes Lisik.
Thank you.